guys, welcome back, and welcome to what I am slowly beginning to think is a lesson in futility. This is the Lotus brooch mold from Into Resin. It is very small, very detailed, and very fiddly. Not for a beginner if you want to keep your sanity, because it has a lot of detailed little petals that hook underneath, and it's very difficult to not get bubbles in. So I'm going to try my hardest. It doesn't take much resin. It's only about a half an ounce. So this is a half an ounce of my Resiners 1:1 epoxy, and I'm going to add just a tiny amount of my Sapphire About Alcohol ink, because I want it slightly colored, just so you can see the detail, but not super colored, if that makes sense. Because I do think that a little bit of color does bring out the detail a little bit more. So this resin is low to medium viscosity, and that is an absolute must for this particular mold, just so the resin can get down into all of those teeny tiny fiddly little petals. Excuse me, I apologize. So that's what I'm going to try to do, is get this down into all the little fiddly little petals. So let me get a couple of things here. Okay, sorry. Now these Into Resin molds, they advise don't use alcohol, don't use heat, torches, heat guns, anything like that, because they are all handmade individually and they are fragile, for lack of a better term, although the molds themselves are very resilient. So I don't spray alcohol in them. I don't use my torch on them. I don't do any of that. I just try my hardest to get all the little pieces and parts as best as I can, you know. So what I'm going to do is just very sparingly at first go in and just dribble, literally dribble, some resin into the petals that I know are going to give me the most of a fit. And then just, whoop, good thing there wasn't a lot of resin in there, eh? Go in and just stretch it out a little bit and pull it away from itself so that resin has an opportunity to go down into the little petals. So now that I've done that, I'm going to add a little bit more and do the same thing. This isn't one of those just, you know, pour it in all at once and rely on the mold to do its thing on its own. No, you actually have to make a concerted effort with this one. You can see that there's little bubbles coming up. These petals on this side are the fiddliest. These are the ones that hook underneath themselves. So if you were looking like this, it would be top to bottom, if that makes sense. Okay. So I'm fairly confident that I've gotten as much in there as I can. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling up the middle bit. Squish, squish, squeeze, squeeze. Squishy, squishy. Squeezy, squeezy. You can see some bubbles coming up. And these handmade molds from Into Resin, I don't, if I have to go in, it's like the big butterfly mold. I can, with confidence, go into that one with a silicone tool and run it around the mold itself because it's a big enough surface area that you can see what you're doing and you don't, you know, really have any issues with it. I would not use metal. I would not use wood because these are the handmade molds and you will ruin the crystal on them. So if I do have to run around any of the petals in this mold with any sort of tool, it is with a silicone tool. And this mold is also one of the ones that you want to wait until it is cured. I mean, cured, hard, completely cured. You don't want to try to demold this when it's still slightly bendy because the petals will not work. They will not come out correctly. Okay. Just going to give it a couple more little tugs. Just a tiny bit. I don't see any more bubbles coming up. Just very lightly going over. Try to pop those bubbles. But this resin degasses beautifully on its own. You know, I've said before that I'm very quickly falling in love with this resin. You know how much I love my Fooey but the Resiners is an exceptionally good resin. I like it a lot. All right, so we've got that all poured. I'm going to patiently wait for it to cure. It's about 81 degrees in my craft room slash office slash living room slash whatever. So I'm anticipating it's going to take probably about 4 to 6 hours for the resin to completely cure to the point where I feel comfortable demolding this. So I will see you guys then. See you soon. this